Hello everybody, and welcome to Rest and Reason. I'm RP the Red Panda, and today we're going to be looking at how to find the right board game mechanic for you. Now this is a slightly different video than how to find the right board game for you. If you'd like to know how to do that, go ahead and click on the link up here in the card to head over to that video. Alright, so let's jump right into the content. There are 4 key elements of a board game that can have different mechanics. There is the setup, the actions, the goals, and the victory. So let's go ahead and get into those 4 different elements. Our first element is setup, and of course that asks, how do I set up this game?
You set this up, you set this whole thing up!
Now, this can range from variable setup to static setup. Variable setup is something like Gaia Project, where the goals, the factions, everything basically changes game to game. Almost nothing stays the same. Whereas a static game such as Crokinole or chess starts out with the exact same setup every single game. This changes one main thing: masterability and what it's focused on. Are you focused on beating the game, like in a variable setup, or beating your opponent, like in a static setup? The second key element of board games are actions.
Get ready to meet the first action hero.
Actions can range from selected to determined actions. Selected actions, such as in Everdell, are things that you select to do during the game, and you can choose various different actions, or a whole slew of many different actions, like in Everdell, where you place out a worker to choose an action. Determined actions are things like in Power Grid, where each round you have to do some specific action or not do some specific action. That's your only choice, to do or not to do. And therefore, it is slightly different. Now, the big difference between these 2 games is one of them is going to induce more thought. When you are selecting your own actions, you really have to think through which action to do when. Whereas with determined actions, there's going to be a lot more simplicity, and therefore will be a lot better for people who are new to board gaming. The third key element of board gaming is the goals that you aim for during the game.
Goals are beyond your understanding.
You either aim for more asset-focused goals or more board-focused goals. Asset-focused goals aim for certain types and groups of cards or resources or money. Whereas board-focused goals aim to cover or move or do certain specific things on the board. Now, asset-focused is best exemplified by something like Pandemic, where you're trying to gather 5 of the same color card, 5 assets of the same color, to take out the disease, to accomplish the goal. Whereas in Castles of Burgundy, you're trying to cover a certain region or area of your board with a certain color, thus accomplishing that goal. Now, this changes one of 2 things. It's either going to make the game very replayable with assets. Assets changing is very easy to make it harder to get assets in certain places or other places, or like with a 52 card deck, you can shuffle those cards every time so those assets are in a completely different order than last time. And that makes the game very replayable. But a board game, a game that's just purely you're focused on the board, is going to be a lot simpler because every time it's not changing a lot. You're going to be looking at either the same board or a very similar board. And that can make it a lot easier for new players. The fourth key element of board gaming is
Victory.
Victory can range from cooperative to combative. Now, some of you might already be asking, what about competitive? I would put competitive right in the middle, because cooperative is everybody wins together, and combative is everybody is directly fighting the entire game for victory. Whereas competitive is, yes, everybody's competing to see who wins, not like cooperative, but they're not directly fighting each other. Now, a great example of cooperative, of course, as I've already mentioned, is Pandemic. Pandemic is a game where every single person either wins or loses together. A great example of a combative board game is Blood Rage, where everybody's smashing each other with their Vikings and their monsters to try to come out on top. And a good example of a competitive board game would be something like Everdell, where you can block each other and compete for goals, but you're ultimately not just bashing each other until you win. Now, this changes the energy of the game a lot. You can either have a very kumbaya energy, where everybody's kind of working together to get done with something, and that really makes for a really peaceful, happy environment that can also be very good for beginners because they feel very safe and they feel coached and helped through the game. Whereas a combative game can feel very like a cartoon villain bashing your friends and trying to destroy them and trying to do sneaky little things to beat them up.
Excellent.
But that might not also be something that you want to show to somebody new, because beating them up the whole game while trying to teach them the game can sometimes be really difficult. So you have to know who you're playing with to decide which side of these works better for you and your game group. Now that we've gone over the 4 key elements, there are actually 3 supporting mechanics that go with many types of board games: automation, battles, and special mechanics. Automation is something like income in Terraforming Mars. It's something that happens every turn but isn't an action. Battles, of course, are combat of some sort.
Let's do this Pokemon battle thing right!
And this isn't in every type of game, but many types of games have combat of some sort, such as in Scythe, where you play cards and power to defeat your enemy. And then finally, you have special mechanics, which is really just my term for everything I haven't mentioned so far in the mechanics of board gaming, because some mechanics don't fit neatly into my little boxes and just change the game in really exciting and fun ways. Alright, so my big question is, what category of board game would you prefer? Would you prefer a game with variable setup where you and your friends are cooperating to try to beat this new setup of the board? Or would you rather have a game that's combative where the board is always the same but you're constantly punching your friends over this same board in different and new and exciting ways? What is your preferred type of board game? And if you'd like to descend
Slowly into madness
of OCD with me, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that notification button, and join us next time on Rest and Reason. Thank you so much.